5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. In the last video, we spoke about the concept of breaking a whole machine learning research paper, which can be quite intimidating to look at, into smaller pieces. And our goal is to put together these smaller pieces, or to build them piece by piece, and then put them together like Lego bricks to create the entire model. Another word here is architecture. So let's make this a little bit colorful. We'll jump in here. There's our graphic for inputs, outputs, layers, and blocks. Let's reflect back on what is paper replicating. This is one of the first slides we looked at. So we have images, math, and text. And so we're going to start breaking the Vision Transformer architecture into different pieces of the puzzle. So we've had a look at figure 1, and if you did a little bit of a homework challenge, I said to look at this for 2 minutes. And that's okay. We're going to get heaps of practice with it. So even if you didn't do it, I mean, I hardly do my homework anyway. I only do really what's fun. We're going to start writing code, and that's the fun part. So we want to end up with something like this. There's a lot going on there, so we're going to not really look at that for now, but it sort of looks like what we're heading towards. But this is the pieces of our puzzle. We have figure 1. There, look at that little transition, pieces of the puzzle. We have figure 1, and we have 4 equations, and we have text. We actually have one more that's not really pictured here, but that is table 1. So we'll go here. Table 1. So we'll come back. Let's do a little section in the Colab notebook. And I'm going to break this down into ViT, overview, and this is pieces of the puzzle. So when I say this is a generic overview for many machine learning architectures, but now we're going to get specific and what is ViT made of itself. So we have 3 main pieces of the puzzle, or 4 really, but we have figure 1, which is visual overview of the architecture. Then we have the 4 equations, which are math equations, which define the functions of each layer / block. And then we have table 1. We really have table 1/3, which is different hyperparameters for the architecture / training. And then of course we have all of the text around it. So let's start off by having a look at figure 1. So we're just going to go figure 1, and then we'll have a look at the 4 equations. We're not going to do all of them in this video. We're going to break this down over a series of videos because this is really breaking down the entire thing. And then table 1. So figure 1, I want to get an image in here. Here's one I prepared earlier. If I go to the GitHub repo, into images, and then if I search, we should have a figure 1 here. Figure 1. There we go. Architecture overview. So I'm going to click the download link here and copy the raw link just so we have a copy of this in our notebook so we don't have to keep jumping back and forth to the paper, even though we probably will keep jumping back and forth to the paper. Then we'll get the 4 equations. So we'll go over here. I'm going to search for 4. ViT paper 4 equations. Click the download. Get the raw version. You can copy that. XX. And copy that there. And then finally, let's get table 1 as well. Oh, I love this. We're going treasure hunting here. Table 1. Do we have table 1? Yes, we do. ViT paper table 1. Now, of course, all of this is from the original ViT paper, so I'm not claiming it to be any of mine, even though it's in my repo. There we go. Okay, so here's our pieces of the puzzle. We have figure 1. We want to first map our Food Vision Mini inputs and outputs to this, so we'll probably do that first. Then we have 4 equations. These define what happens or make our layers sort of mathematically complete. We see the different inputs and outputs here. Z0, which stands for logits, or the inputs, this is an embedding here. We're going to cover this later on. And then we go to the next layer. So this gets inputted to here. and then this gets inputted to here, and then this gets inputted to here. And then we have hyperparameters for our different models. We're going to be focused on ViT base. So with that being said, let's jump into making figure 1 colorful. So this is the overview of Vision Transformer, inputs and outputs. One of the first things you should do when inspecting a machine learning research paper or any new architecture you've never used before is figure out what goes into the model and what comes out. So in this case, we have a Vision Transformer. An image goes in and it looks like it gets cut into different patches here, and then it gets manipulated by a series of transformer encoder layers. This over here is a blown up version of this. So that, all these layers here are what's inside there. And then it looks like the outputs are some class names. And we've got class bird, ball, car because the Vision Transformer was originally trained on ImageNet. However, in our case, what classes might we have there? We're going to see that later on, but let's just map inputs we've got here. So this is our input. We split an image into fixed size patches. A little bit of a clue there. How do we do that? Linearly embed each of them and add position embeddings. What's a linear embedding? What's a position embedding? Don't worry, we're going to cover all this later on. And feed the resulting sequence of vectors to a standard transformer encoder. What's an encoder? Well, let's make some definitions here. An embedding, we might write this down in a second, or a linear embed, or a learnable classification token. Anywhere where you see linearly embed, or embedding, or extra learnable something, it's a learnable representation. So rather than just, we're going to split our image into patches. So rather than just inputting the pixel values of our image into our transformer encoder, we want to embed them, so turn them into a learnable representation. And we're going to see this later on, but let's just define it in figure 1. So figure 1, we want to, or maybe we won't, make a bigger heading here. These are important pieces of the puzzle. So embedding equals learnable representation. So start with random numbers and improve them over time. So that's an embedding. Embeddings are one of the most powerful concepts in all of machine learning. And then we jump back into here. Now, MLP, a lot of acronyms in this paper. Multi-layer perceptron, we saw that before. Multi-layer perceptron is generally a stack of a couple of layers on top of each other, but the number of layers could be arbitrary. In the case of the ViT paper, we see that it's going to be 2. We'll see that later on. So this is the outputs. You see how we've just mapped our inputs and outputs? First thing, whenever you're dealing with a new research paper, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? In order to perform classification, so okay, that's a clue to us. This is a classification model. We use the standard approach of adding an extra learnable, wherever you see the term learnable, it's an embedding, classification token to the sequence. Okay, let's see what that looks like later on. And then we map the layers. So each one of these can be considered an individual layer. So the embedding, how we create the embedding, the image embedding, normalization layer, that's what norm stands for, multi-head attention, we have another norm layer, and you might notice this arrow here, this is a connection. This means that the output of these 2 layers, which is here, the input to those gets added to it here, and the same thing with this connection here. That's known as a skip or residual connection. We're going to see that later on. I know that this is going to be a lot to take in for now, but trust me, we're going to work through this together. Then we have another normalization layer and another MLP layer. And if we combine these, we get blocks. So we have a block here. This is in the paper known as the MSA layer or MSA block, which is a norm layer coupled with a multi-head attention layer. Recall that blocks are a stack of layers. And then we have another block here, which is an MLP block. And then so within this transformer encoder, it is a block in itself comprised of other blocks. And then we stack together, this is that LX, we stack together multiple blocks of the transformer encoder to create the overall model. So a lot going on here, but we've broken this down into inputs and image. The image goes through a series of layers and blocks, and then we get our outputs. Let's now convert this to Food Vision Mini style. We have this image of pizza, gets turned into patches, goes through this series of layers, and then hopefully outputs the pizza class. So this is what we're going to be working towards, replicating all of this for our Food Vision Mini problem. Whew, that was a fair bit to take in, I know. But step by step, we're going to be writing code to reproduce this. In the next series of videos, we're going to be going through the 4 equations and table 1, but I think we might start to... Actually, no, yeah, let's give a high-level overview of the 4 equations in table 1, and then we'll start writing some code. Otherwise, we'll be a bit too much all over the place, even though we kind of already are. So we just gave an overview of figure 1. Let's move through these 2 next, and then we'll write some code to replicate it all. I'll see you in the next video.